Okay, David, it is leading up to archery season. How excited are you?
Pretty excited. I wish I had more time to practice, but
Me too. That's always the thing here in summer, isn't it?
yeah.
We're leading up to archery season, whether for you that's a recurve, a compound, or a crossbow. Today we're going to have a guy who can talk all three of those and more with archery. His name is Pat Meitin. He's a good friend of mine. He's from Inside Archery, and this is Deer Talk Now. Thank you. I am Dan Schmidt. Pat, or Patrick, if people are reading your byline, welcome back to the program once again.
Oh, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, most people will remember that you were a deer and deer hunting guy first, so I'm going to put that out there.
Yeah, no, I wrote for you guys for forever till I got into this magazine. I just don't have as much time for freelancing as I once did. So it is what it is.
And that's a shame, and I'm sure, regret that. But if you're not familiar with Inside Archery, it is an archery trade magazine. Pat, tell people just, I know what it is, I know what you do, but what do you do with Inside Archery?
It goes out to archery manufacturers, archery dealers, pro shop employees, and it's really geared to inside archery. Just as the title says, it's the inside information on what's going on behind the scenes in the archery industry, as far as manufacturing new products, that sort of thing. So lots of product coverage, what's coming up, what's new.
We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Correct me if my bio is wrong here, but you have been into the archery world for many, many, many years. I met you back in the early 90s. You were a freelance writer then, but you've lived in New Mexico. You were a guide, California, Idaho. Did I miss something there?
Oh no, I guided in New Mexico and the Gila, guided a little bit in Arizona, guided a little bit in Colorado way back when, like 40 years ago or something.
And that's what your main thing was, archery. Tell us, how did you get into it? How did you get into bow hunting, and how did that fuel your career path to where you are now?
I know it's really odd. I always wanted to shoot bows. I got in trouble as a little kid for chopping up the trees out in the yard, building bows out of package string. So I don't know where that came from. I just always wanted to do it. No one in my family shot bows, and then shot some bows when I was very young, maybe 6 or 7 at the YMCA, and then that really hooked me. But I had the desire before then. So I have no idea where that came
Was that
from. I always wanted.
Didn't you grow up in California?
No, I grew up I was an Army brat at first, but no, I grew up mostly in New Mexico.
Okay.
Texas, went to college in Texas. So,
which was
yeah,
unusual then, because not too many people shot archery in Texas, did they?
well, New Mexico, where I mostly grew up, did a lot of rifle hunting. I always wanted to bow hunt, but I was kind of at the mercy of the grown-ups who had vehicles, to drive out into the woods, because we were way out from the mountains. So I did a lot of rifle hunting as a kid, but I always wanted to bow hunt. And I started bow hunting when I was like 12, because you could hunt archery, muzzleloader, rifle. Now you have to choose the season. Back then you could hunt them all if you wanted. So I always archery hunted when I was young with not a lot of success, and then would go to rifle camp and usually get my deer there. But I think I killed my first deer with a bow when I was 14. So it started hunting very early. The advantage of living in the West. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, that's what we want to talk about today. I have a couple notes here, and we can go from there. But I want to get into some of the geeky stuff that I know that you're into. And you actually were one of the first guys. I think that idea might have hatched in a conversation that you and I had at deer camp. Was we have that column in Deer and Deer Hunting called Bow Shop. We also have Gun Shop. And the Bow Shop column was basically, guy walks into a bow shop and asks X. Because I would hear it all the time from readers asking me these questions, and I can give a educated guess and answer on a lot of the things, but I'm like, listen, I'm not that pro shop guy, and I knew you were. So one of the things, the first one, I've been getting a lot of questions lately on archery strings. And when I say that, I mean for all types of archery equipment, whether it's a compound, recurve, or a crossbow. So give us in a couple minutes, what do you know about strings and how important really they are? Because I think it's an overlooked topic among a lot of bow hunters.
Bowstrings, the thing you got to understand is any advancements that have been made in the performance of bows, faster in particular, is all based on the bowstring. The manufacturers tell me they could make a bow that would shoot 500 foot per second, but
Wow.
the string material is not there yet. Mechanically they can do it, but the strings are the limiting factor. So bowstrings are really important. It holds the whole thing together. It's what makes it work. And I'd say not that long ago, 15, 20 years ago, there was some really questionable string material out there. Peeps that weren't, you'd shoot it 100 times and your peep's not coming back square anymore, things stretching and going out of tune. And that has changed a lot, just a lot better quality strings overall. So I'd say even with a factory bow now, you're getting really good strings. I know like Headhunter bowstrings in particular, they build a lot of string. OEM, is that the term? OEM strings for manufacturers. And Matthews has their own string brand.
Zebra
I
strings.
know, yeah, Zebra Strings and Bear Archery builds their own strings. So, the string material, the raw material that the strings are being made out of are getting so much better. And then the finished product, the pre-stretching the string while they're building it, the just better serving, better end loops, that sort of thing.
So what are they?
Much
Are they
better.
using just different like modern materials? I mean, how could that really change so much over just a couple of years?
It's well, like anything else, it's the technology has improved. They're getting, they'd go to one extreme like Vectra or something like that, and then it would be super low stretch but kind of hard on the equipment and not very abrasion resistance. And they've done some mixes of the material now where they're getting the best of all worlds. um, the main thing with a quality bowstring, low stretch, so your bow stays tuned. You tune it, it stays tuned. And then the real important thing is, back in the day we had rubber tubing on our peep sights to keep them straight at full draw, because the string material was such garbage back in those days. You had to. Now everyone just has an independent peep that's floating in the string, no tubing attached. So I mean, if you have a bad string that's stretching, you're going to be constantly messing with that, pressing it and retwisting it. Now you get a good set of strings, you put your peep in, shoot it for 2 years, and it keeps coming back square to the eye every time. Because you can nudge a peep with your nose or your lips or something if it doesn't come back square, but you're losing time. And sometimes, especially deer hunting in the rut, buck gives you 2 seconds to get a shot off, and if you're messing with your peep, you're done. He's the left, So um, the peep rotation coming back square every time, very very important, and that's all a product of stretch.
I did not even know that because you know me, I was always messing with my peeps over the years, and I didn't know that was the reason why. Which brings up the next question. You say like a modern bow, a bow that you bought in the last couple of years, you could probably shoot that for a couple of years. But I've heard a lot, and I've actually read in your writing that the importance of changing out strings and replacing them after X amount of shots. Is that still something that guys need to do, or has that been bred out of the
I
equation?
mean, it really comes down to how much are you shooting and what kind of conditions are you shooting in. The so we know the guys that pull their bows out a week before the season and shoot for a week or two, And then you have people like me that I shoot year round, and so I'm shooting thousands of shots. So I'm going to wear out a set of strings a lot faster than most people. And the other thing is heat. Heat's really hard on strings. If you're in hot environments a lot, like if you live in South Texas or something, compared to like up here in Idaho where I live, that's going to be a factor. Even with modern strings, I went axis deer hunting in South Texas in July last year. It was hotter than
Brutal.
hate. And my perfectly tuned bow that had been that way for months, my peep turned ever so slightly just being in that heat. Um, fresh strings, part of that's peace of mind, part of it's just wear. When you start getting serving separation or end loop separation in particular, where it's wrapping around brick corners on the cams and stuff. When you start getting fraying in particular, I know like my elk bows here in the West wear out a lot faster. You're carrying them, they're rubbing on clothing because you have it on a harness, or you're pushing through brush with it. It's when you start get the fraying and especially like loose whole strands loose. I mean, it's still shootable, but it's coming to its lifespan. So sometimes it's obvious. I would say if you don't shoot a lot, I mean, strings will last forever if you're just not shooting that much and you're not being really gentle with your equipment. But otherwise, I'd say average guy every couple of years. And me, when I'm going on a big trip, like I'm going to Australia in August to hunt water buffalo, I'm going to swap the strings out in my bow just to start with a fresh set from the get go. It's just too big of a trip to leave anything to chance. It's super super anal, but start the trip out with a fresh set. I'll shoot it enough to break it in to make sure everything's going to stay set. But I'd say every 2 years,
Two
for
years.
the average guy. Yeah. Well, of course, keep an eye on everything. If you start getting end loop and separation, the center serving can always be redone. That's a piece of cake. But especially if you start losing strands or getting big tatters, and um, it's time to change it.
What about
And
crossbows? Because you did talk about technology. We see it a lot, especially these 10 points that I'm shooting. They're so fast. And that's got to be a technological wonder how that even happens. But what about crossbows, and how does that affect their performance?
yeah, I'm not like I'm not a crossbow expert, but I mean, it's got to wear out faster. There's so much energy, higher poundage, and especially if the systems that have rails, and if you're not keeping that lubed and getting dirt on there, that's going to wear things out faster. Um, I've been in some hunting camps with guys shooting crossbows that their strings were pretty ratty looking. I mean, I'd be afraid to shoot it, but um, I think the crossbow strings have a lot more strands than a bowstring, so probably because of that, just to make sure, a little bit of insurance there. But again, just keep an eye on it, and they need to be cleaned and waxed on a regular basis. That'll prolong life. That's like scorpion venoms products. They make a cleaner and a reviver. I think 30-06 Outdoors does as well, a cleaner and a reviver, just to get all that gunk and dust and stuff out of the strands, and you know then you re-wax it, and but it ought to always be waxed. It keeps the water out. It seals out the dust and dirt. But that probably causes more wear. And that there again on those long elk hunts where your equipment's getting dirty and wet and rained on every day and pushed through brush. All that wax is being pushed off, and then things tend to wear out a lot faster. So maintaining your strings is very, very important to a longer life.
And then probably the same thing with your servings. And I do see this when I mentioned the crossbows. You have much more surface points with serving on it rather than the string, and then using a lube for the serving spots where the servings are, right?
And then, like center serving, I wear out center servings constantly because I shoot a lot. And, I've learned, well, I worked in pro shops a couple of different times, but I've learned to do my own serving. I mean, that's no big deal. I can do it in like 5 minutes. But, you take it to a pro shop, that's just standard stuff for them. So, if you see, underneath the nock, where you're knocking your arrow, if, especially if you do a lot of small game hunting or stump shooting and you're shooting dirty arrows, you tend to, your nocks are dirty. They wear out the serving faster. That's no big deal. That doesn't mean that the strings crash. It just means your center serving needs to be replaced. It's a piece of cake.
Awesome. Okay, so we go through that, and the other thing that jumped out at me when I was preparing for this, we go from strings to arrows. Obviously, the other important thing. Back when I was starting, it was a matter of what size aluminum arrow I was going to shoot. Was I going to shoot the ones that are about as big as my thumb, or I was going to shoot the ones about as big as my little finger? There's so many different options today. We've got mostly carbon arrows or carbon-based arrows. We also do have like the Easton FMJs that still have the aluminum inside wrapped with carbon. What have you seen in arrows recently as far as advancements, and how is this helping bow hunters today improve?
Well, that the micro diameter, or whatever you want to call them, the 0.166 inch inside diameter arrows that's going to take an over. The smaller diameter arrows, they, again, out here in the West where I hunt, wind drift is a real thing here. Whitetail hunting, not so much. They penetrate better. They tend to be a little more concentrated mass. They penetrate really well. And I don't know, I may be getting off into the weeds, but I think because of the smaller diameter, they tend to spin faster and less circumference to get going spinning. So I tend to shoot the 0.166s and the 204s most of the time now. I actually can't remember the last time I shot a standard diameter, like 2.45 inch arrow. I tell you, like the Victory VAP TKO, I probably, looking at stuff I've killed the last few years, probably 80% of my animals have been killed with those. Just good all around arrow. I mean, gold tip Kears and Easton 4mm axis are in the same ballpark. The 204s and Ultra makes a really good arrow now. The 204s, like I shot some Carbon Express photons last fall for whitetail that worked really well. Can think of some others. I mean, I know Gold Tip makes one, and there's like the Victory Rick Bass Ass that's the 204. But like I said, I don't think I've shot a standard diameter arrow in at least, I don't know, quite a while.
What is your setup currently? I know you had a couple physical struggles that you had to get over. What is your what's your draw weight? What kind of setup are you using for whitetails? Let's just start with your arrow.
The arrows I'm shooting, like I said, most of the time like a Victory VAP TKO. And, I don't know, finished weight with point and everything, like 450, 475, okay. Somewhere in, I think they're those type of arrows. And again, like the Axis and the Pierce, they're 9.5 grains per inch. Mm-hmm. And then in the X3s, that's the other thing, those skinny arrows, you have the outsert type things that tend to be a tad heavier. I mean, instead of 25 grains, it's 50 grains or something. So bumps up your FOC. It really protects the front of that shaft. I've not had an arrow failure in years because of, shooting the stuff that I do. And what has happened with me, for years, probably when you and I first met and we were in that deer camp in Illinois,
I remember.
We were probably all shooting arrows that were 7.5, 8 grains an inch, maybe,
yep.
And as bows have gotten faster and faster, I've just adopted heavier and heavier arrows. So I can't remember the last time I had an arrow failure. You get these heavier, low diameter, thick walled arrows, they just don't break. And you don't get the banana peeling on the inserts anymore. The broadheads are also better, but um, everything about today's modern arrows with the carbon, the carbon technology has just come such a long ways from what we started with. I mean, the pultruded, I don't know if you remember that far back. They were heavy, they were small diameter, but man, if you broke one, it was dangerous. It was
It was
lots of
all over the place. It was shrapnel going off, basically.
nasty splinters, and it stick in your fingers, and then we got the Beemans that would break off clean, and the standard diameter. Now this thin stuff. Like I said, it's just tough. I've shot. I am now. I shouldn't say this out loud. People will get crazy, but I'm no longer afraid of whitetail shoulder blades. I mean, my
Interesting.
stuff will go right.
Deer Talk Now is brought to you by Traditions. As you probably know, 2 years ago they came out with the Nitro Fire in collaboration with Federal Premium and Hodgdon. The Fire Stick, they shoot through those guns. This has really changed muzzleloading and has made it more safer, more accurate. Check them out today at traditionsfirearms.com. What
I shoot 70 pounds at 30 inches. So
okay, that's what I was going to ask.
I've got the power stroke advantage, and then even I blew this hand up, so I had to start over about 2 years ago. So it took me a year, to get back to 70 pounds. And I'd say hunting in the rut when it gets colder, I'll back off to about 65 just to make sure that I can get it back when I've been sitting there for several hours cold. But still, with my long draw length, that's a huge advantage. So, but you can get today's carbon arrows and shoot it through a coffee can full of gravel, and it won't even hurt it. They're indestructible.
450 to 475 grains. You think that's a sweet spot for you?
Yeah, that's a good combination of balance of speed and durability and penetration. And I know, like, those Carbon Express photons that I shot last fall, they were probably 50 grains lighter than that. 400 grains, let's say, finished. And of course, that's my long draw length. And the deer I shot, instead of blasting through, they'd be hanging by the fletchings on the opposite side with 65 pounds. So, the weight really is meaningful on the amount of penetration you're getting. It's when I do what little outdoor television I watch, I'm always surprised by the lack of penetration, especially nowadays with the equipment we're shooting. I don't know what they're shooting. I don't know how it's possible. I mean, go in 5 or 6 inches sometimes. I mean, they're killing the deer because they're hitting it in the heart. It's just not. It should be going through. That's my opinion. 2 holes are always better than 1.
There always is for blood trailing. So you're talking a combination of speed. The smaller diameter obviously is helping you. When they say resistance, it is a thing, and you got some momentum going through there. I know you test everything. We switch now from the arrow itself to that broadhead. Are you shooting all sorts of different broadheads? And if not, or even if you are, what are your go-tos? Because I know you do like to get nice clean pass-throughs.
I shoot as many different broadheads as I possibly can, just because it's kind of my job. So I don't really develop favorites. I'd say overall design, I've kind of developed preferences there, but as far as saying I like this particular broadhead the most, because I live in the West, I'm going to pick something different for pronghorn, something different for whitetail, something different for elk, something different for water buffalo for sure.
So go through all of those for us. Take each one of those species and tell us your preferences.
And then I don't think we really have the problems of state regulations. Like when I first moved to Idaho, I was not allowed to use a mechanical here. So I got to where I really liked that Quality Archery Designs QAD Exodus a lot. They fly good. They're bulletproof. And they, inch and a half. I mean, inch and a quarter cutting diameter. Kind of a great combination for a fixed blade and indestructible. But I'd say with whitetails, the elk, I still prefer fixed blade. I cannot make myself shoot an elk with a mechanical. I know it'll work. I know guys that do it, but I'm not going to do it. Despite the energy that I shoot, it just things can go wrong. There's a lot of big bones there. And then I'd say on smaller stuff, pronghorn, cow's whitetail in the Southwest, I'm going to use the most aggressive mechanical I can find. Whitetails, I've kind of gone in the middle. I've started using a lot of hybrids. Um, Shot a whitetail recently with one of the Wacom hybrids that worked really well. Shot a lot of animals with the Sever hybrids. It's kind of a new one. Um, SWAT has SWAT has a broadhead they call a hybrid. It's a 4-blade mechanical. You can leave the blades open. That's why they call it a hybrid. But I've had really good luck with that on hogs. Shot a lot of hogs with those. They're a little tiny 4-blade. It's like when it's folded up, it's the size of a field point. Um, Steel Force is back in business.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the cool old cut-on contacts, the modern precision cut-on contacts. So, for there's a lot of women, youth people now. Well, there's a lot of older guys that just can't pull that many pounds. Those are always good options for everything, deer included. Um, and trad guys, the traditional guys, you just cannot generate the energy with a recurve or a longbow that you do with a compound. So they really always use, one of those true cut-on contact knife point type broadheads. But whitetails, I really like the hybrids. You get a cross cut, and you have 2 blades that are going to work no matter what, and then something that reaches out to an inch and a half or 2. You really can't beat it. And I think just the cutting action of the fixed blades kind of helps the mechanicals penetrate a little better, and just nasty huge holes. I mean,
they are pretty impressive.
Yeah, like that Wacom hybrid I shot a whitetail with here in Idaho. Pictures were nasty because the holes were, you could stick your fist in it.
I shot a bunch with the Sever hybrid. David's got video and photos. That was like a murder scene. I mean, it was a murder scene, but and scary sharp. And that's the other thing too. Bob Robb told me that when I first got in this industry, he said, I don't care what you shoot, make sure it's scary sharp. And pretty impressive that these companies are doing that, even with mechanicals, because you and I both know that manufacturing process isn't easy on those types of broadheads.
Yeah, and then I think a big part of that too is companies have become a little more savvy about packaging, because they may have started with a really super sharp blade in the past, but then they'd throw it in a package and it would rattle around and it would become dull. So yeah, the thing about sharpness is you got to think about arteries and veins like rubber bands. If those arteries are just rolling around your blade, it's not doing you any good. So you want to slice. If you're not accidentally cutting yourself every once in a while, your blades aren't sharp. I mean, they need to be spooky sharp.
What types of bows have you been shooting this year?
Let me see. Right now, I've got the only 2005 I have right now is a Matthews Lift X.
That's what I'm shooting.
Probably the quietest bow I've ever shot, probably. I still have a lift, last year's lift that I was shooting during turkey season because it was a 29-incher. The Lift X I have is a 33. I've got a Prime. Oh, the newest Prime. I've just gone blank. Anyways, I like that bow a lot. I've got a Bear Execute 33. Got a Bowtech Carbon 1X I really like. Got a PSE Mach 34 I really like. So in my case, because I'm 6'5", other than turkeys hunting out of pop-up blinds, I'm too tall to be in a pop-up blind, so I have to use a short bow. But other than that, I tend to like at my height and my draw length, I like a bow that's 32, 33.
You
So
do like the shorter ones. That's interesting.
I like them for certain things. I like them for whitetail hunting. I like anytime I'm going to be in a pop-up blind, because when you're 6'5", you're sitting in a chair, you're closer to that ceiling than average people. So some of those long bows, if I'm not very careful, like my top cam's going to hit the roof and make noise and send my arrow off on some crazy flight. So I like the short bows for pop-up blind. That's about the end of it. Or if I'm going to be like turkey hunting, sitting flat on my butt. But just for shooting, and again, being a Western guy, I mean, I'm practicing out to 100, and I'll pretty confident hunting out to 60. So I want fist-sized group out to 60 yards.
That's pretty awesome.
When I prep.
So you get to test all these different bows. You're testing the different arrows, broadheads. What's out there this year for 2025? Guys are just picking up their equipment annual. They see all these products. What are a couple of the things that you were really intrigued by January when we were at the archery trade show looking at everything?
I'd say this Matthews Lift X is pretty impressive. It's very easy to shoot, and it's super quiet. And then I got the UltraView sight with it. I have to say that's pretty awesome. It's very expensive, so it ought to be awesome, and it is. That Bowtech Virtue, they haven't come out with any lefties yet, so I'm looking forward to shooting it. But I like what I'm seeing. That that Maglite, whatever they're calling it, riser, and it seems like that's going to be a very cool bow. I only see accessories. The Excel driver sight was one of the coolest sights I've seen this year. And the HHA Nitrix, that's a very cool sight too. Well, let me see. Vapor Trail, what are they calling that? Victor, limb-driven follow-away arrest looks very cool. Apparently they haven't gotten that quite rolling yet, so it should be soon. What else can I think of? Something I just wrote up it's a little thing, but it's pretty cool. I think it's like a Nilchi wind detector. It's like these little tiny bottles, and they pop into a holder that you adhere to the side of your bow, or zip tie onto your bow, or clip them onto the edge of your hat. I mean, it's just a little thing, but again, for a Western guy like me, it's awesome.
Always testing that wind.
Chasing bugling elk, you'll go through 5 of those a day. I mean, it's just you're checking the wind every 5 minutes. And there's got to be some more stuff out there. I mean, that kind of intrigued by that Victory HLR arrow. It's basically what it is. It's a lighter 204 diameter, like 8.5 grains an inch or something. But the components are upfront components are a little heavier, so you're going to be able to get your finished weight up there, but boost your FOC to high as you want it, really. So that'll be an interesting thing to play with. Nothing else comes to mind.
Where do you see this? I mean,
what have you seen?
Don't ask me. Don't ask me. Don't ask me, because you know me, I get it to work, and that's where I stop. Unless I have to, actually. And I don't do as much reporting on the archery technology as you do. One thing that I would just note is, my opinion, we've kind of hit the max, because it was a speed race forever, and then now we've kind of settled in 330 advertised speeds for compounds. Crossbows, we saw them go way past 500. Now they're back down to the 440 range. I think the manufacturers have seen it, like you said, unless, in the case what you're saying, unless strings change, which we don't see it changing that much, you can't really go any farther. But the efficiency, you're talking about some of those sites. I shoot the same setup that you shoot. The efficiency on it, maybe it's because I've just gotten older and I'm not sitting there trying to reach the next horizon, but I'm shooting the same bow. I'm shooting the Easton 4mm. I'm shooting severed broadheads. But for me, I can pack those in at 30 yards, which is fine for me, in about a silver dollar size. I'm good with that. I don't need to go any farther. And I do know, you taught me the benefits of being able to shoot long range. I don't shoot thousands of arrows. I shoot dozens when I'm shooting in summer, to make me sharp enough. And then also I'm doing everything else. I'm muzzleloader hunting, I'm crossbow hunting, I'm rifle hunting, as you are. But for me, it's more spread out. But the question in that rant was, where do you see technology going? Is there anywhere else we can go, or is it just going to remain tweaks upon the engine, so to speak?
I think we're kind of into the tiny detail stage. But every year write up bow reports and I say, oh, they can't take it any farther than this, and they somehow manage. So again, this is something we haven't even thought of. The guys like Matt McPherson are on a different level than we are. They're like the Elon Musks of the archery world. They think way out of the box.
I mean, you've got you mentioned them though, but you have Hoyt, you have Matthews, you've got Bowtech, you've got some of these other companies out there. Bear's been around forever. You got basically, there's a handful of engineers out there who know how to do this stuff, but I think what you're telling me is they've kind of hit they've crested that mountain as far as, and I agree. I mean, you pick up a new bow and you're like, man, I didn't think it could be quieter. This seems quieter. This seems more forgiving. I don't know how.
Yeah,
but
for a long time it was all about speed, and I mean we were shooting over draws. We were shooting ridiculously light arrows, chasing that, and blowing up bows too. But that was the thing back in the 80s, early 90s. And then became the race for quieter bow. That's been quite successful. I don't know how someone like Limb Saber stays in business. Well, they're supplying the bow makers now, but pull a bow out of the box, it's ready to roll. It's already got string silencers, limb silencers, everything on it. But I think where we're at now is we're getting into higher levels of efficiency, and we're getting into more and more forgiveness. These bows have become easier and easier to shoot. That's my perspective. I mean, there's still some of those hot rod bows out there that are challenged to shoot well, but for average guys, I just feel like bows have just gotten so much easier to shoot. You don't have to practice as hard to reach the same proficiency. That's why you start moving out to 80, 90, 100 yards just to challenge yourself during the off season. And I have no intention of shooting at an animal that far, but if I get a shot at 40, it's going to be slam dunk. And the big part about spotting and stalking in the West is your shot opportunities are super, super fleeting. You've got a second or two to shoot, or that animal walks out of your life forever. So I have to shoot so much to where I go on autopilot. I'm just concentrating on the shot, and I don't have to concentrate on my shooting form or anchor or any of that stuff. It just happens. So we can get off some pretty quick shots on an animal that's just stopped in a gap for a half a second, so it's that's what my practice does for me. I think even the average guy that practices at all can become proficient at 25, 30 yards very easily now. These are just so easy to shoot.
I would say easy. Well, I was going to start another one, but I just was alerted that our time is up. So I think that should give us enough to whet our appetite heading into summer, and especially looking forward to another whitetail season. What's your first hunt on the schedule this year?
Well, I've already hunted axis deer and turkeys this year. I have bear baits out right now. I just filled yesterday, so I'll be hunting bears within the next couple of weeks.
Oh, nice. Well, we're going to be looking forward to those pictures because I know you probably shoot one.
Then, then I don't know if Australia is going to come first or early season whitetail here, because our season opens 30th of August. So kind of up in the air on Australia dates right now. We're trying to work around a bunch of different schedules. So
awesome. Well, I am jealous. Well, Pat, thank you for joining us once again, my friend. It's always nice to have you and to be able to visit.
Good to talk to you, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. He is Pat Meitin. He works for Inside Archery. You can't check it out because it's a trade magazine, but you can check him out on social media wherever you can find him. It's Meitin, Patrick. Thank you, Pat. And for Pat and David Gillane, I am Dan Schmidt. We appreciate you joining us. The Deer Talk Now podcast, every podcast platform you can think of, YouTube if you want to watch the videos, also the videos on Facebook and Instagram, and even video shorts on TikTok. We appreciate you, and we will catch you next week, Thursday, for another brand new episode of the Deer Talk Now podcast. The Deer Talk Now podcast is brought to you by Mossberg, Wildlife Research Center, Traditions Firearms, Outdoor Edge Knives, Hoyt Archery, and 10 Point Crossbows.